Oh, hey, parser people. So, yeah, happy Text Adventure Tuesday. It is a wonderful Tuesday. It is a wonderful time to finish a game. Finish a game that we have been playing for the past few weeks. It is a wonderful game. It is The Weight of a Soul. It is a study of the Ars Vitalis by Chin Kee Yong. It is a relatively recent game. It's honestly one of the best games, I think, to introduce people to text adventures and interactive fiction in general. It is relatively straightforward. There's some fun little puzzles, and we have gotten almost to the end of it, and I cannot believe that we have almost gotten to the end of it. We have figured out the cause of the horrible plague that has been happening. It is because of a set of doctors who are trying to cull the herd, more or less. I really can't say that there wasn't a time. I actually forgot who actually did everything. I had thought that it was the doctor who had died, but he was just an innocent bystander, or mostly innocent. So the actual perpetrator is your romantic sort of target, Dr. Justinian, and we are Mareed, a medical apprentice of probably the only good doctor in town who helps all sorts of people. Dr. Kavala. So we have gotten very, very, very far in this game. We are at the last section. And so if we restore, we have two choices. We are currently tied in a room after being captured by Dr. Justinian. And we get to kind of go from there. So we have two choices. Just to be clear, JRAM cannot be with us, but I wanted to finish this so that JRAM and I can get to other games next week. And then we're going to have a few vintage text adventure Tuesdays for a while JRAM is on vacation. Do I get vacation? Absolutely not. I already got my vacation. It was wonderful. So we have two choices. We can cry or we can try to compose ourselves. We have been playing pretty consistently as a woman of action, increasingly confident in her abilities. So we're going to try to compose ourselves. You close your eyes and take a ragged breath. The thrum of the channel works envelops you. You can hear the machinery of the Hydra Aquifera, of the sanitation of the entire district, churning ceaselessly. You hear the displacement of hundreds of tons of water, and the grinding of mechanical turbines and distant hisses of steam like a great creature's exhalation. It is the lifeblood of the district you are hearing. It is that which bears the lives of the thousands that live here. You think of Horatio in the rain, his face dirty after a long shift. You think of Dr. Kavala and her self-assured smile. There's the bartender with his mask, and the ice cream salesman, and the boy with the cap who hands out the newspapers every morning. You take another breath. You try to hold it steady. Your heart isn't pounding as hard anymore. You aren't okay. Not really, but you're a little better. It'll have to be enough. We have only one choice. Let's try to loosen our bonds. You will your sore muscles to move. You test the limits of the ropes Justinian has tied you with. They're tight, but not so tight that you can't wiggle a little. One of the ropes binding your hands is perhaps a little looser than it should be. You can feel it give when you twist your wrist just so. Feel the knot shifting, letting your wrist move in an infinitesimal distance further than before. Was Justinian in a hurry? Or is this just another mercy he chose to grant you? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you have a way out of this chair. It will take a long time. It will take hours. But it's not as if you have anything else to do. Now, at least you have something to work at, to take your mind off things. Perhaps without the ropes constricting your blood flow, you will be able to think clearly, to think of something that will make Justinian return to his old self. It must be possible. It must. Because you don't know what you're going to do otherwise. You think an hour has passed. You have a stinging rope burn and a terrible cramp in your wrist. But it's done, and your right hand is free. You reach over and painstakingly loosen the bonds around your left wrist and your left elbow, and then with your left hand reach into your coat pocket and pray. There it is. Your scalpel. You have to pause for a moment to take deep breaths to steady yourself. Your heart is racing. You draw out your scalpel and use your free hand to remove the safety cover. Fumbling in the darkness, you press the blade into the rope binding your right elbow, and it parts. You work slowly, carefully, but not without a tremor of excitement. The circulation returns to your limbs as you free yourself from rope after rope. Each cut makes the next one easier. At last, you reach down and slice through the ropes binding your ankles in a single stroke. You are free. Now, you need to figure out how to get out of here. We're in an oubliette. You are somewhere dingy and humid and shut off from the outside world. There is no light here, and even your second sight is not enough to pierce the suffocating gloom. At the foot of a chair, a faint glimmer of other light outlines the shape of your animus lantern, but the lantern is dark, and the phylactery cathode no longer shines. Well, let's get lantern. You pick up the animus lantern. Finding its rough angles, its weight, you trace the alchemical lines to its fuse glyph and strike the fuse to light it, but nothing happens. You peer into the lantern, and you see that the animus that once danced within its cage is still. The life in the lantern has gone out. Without an animus to replace the one in the phylactery cathode, the animus lantern will be of no use to you in the dark. It's just checking our inventory. You're wearing an animus pendant containing the spirit of your father, your natron jacket, and your clothes. On your person are an animus lantern, your practitioner's badge, your scalpel, your purse, and an antiseptic cloth. Oh, the cloth is for cleaning your scalpel. Didn't know that. I don't think we've ever actually looked at the cloth. So to catch up, we are trying to get out of the sort of what's the word I'm looking for? To get out of this horrible situation. And we're trying to kind of, I don't know, just figure out how to get back to Justinian. He thinks he's right, which is nice. So the only animus that we have, everything is in this world is powered by souls, which is actually kind of even more horrible than it would be normally, because if I remember right, the disease that's caused by this plague is it like twists the souls or something. So that's interesting. Okay. Can we put pendant in lantern? Your pendant. You run your fingers along your collarbone and find the weight of the pendant resting against your heart. You pull it out and look at it. In your mind's eye, it seems to glow against the anemic veil. How long have you worn this reminder of your father around your neck? Father, you say. But even before you open your mouth, you know there will be no reply. We can make no promises, the entomologist said. His brow knitted. If indeed your father died there, we can bind the residual energies to an animus stone. Residual, you understand. There's no telling how much of his energy remains, or indeed if any of his energy has remained. Consider the pendant a memorial to your father, rather than a way to bring him back. The sooner that you accept that, the sooner both of you will find peace. You will never speak with your father again. There was a time when you dared not admit that to yourself, but now it seems impossible to imagine that things could have happened any other way. Perhaps there is a better way to remember your father, after all, which does not bind him to his stone. You use your scalpel to make a chip in the stone of the pendant, and the other light streams from it like sunlight rippling in the ocean. You touch it to the fused glyph of the animus lantern, and brilliance fills the anemic lines, and the metal grows warm beneath your hand. The pendant is empty now. It is the lantern that glows and is alive. The light of your lantern reveals what looks to be an industrial cistern, now emptied and repurposed into a holding cell. A metal chair has been placed among dingy grates and concentric water purification rings. There's only one door leading out of this prison, and it appears to be locked. But beside the broken porridge bowl and the discarded pieces of rope, there's a drain cover that looks like it can be opened. And this is exactly like what... So this was the first interactive fiction that I had played since I was a kid. This was recommended to me by JRAM, basically saying, no, you have to play this. And this is exactly the kind of thing that I really respected in the way that this was written. It tells you exactly what you need to do, except for that one thing that I couldn't remember how it worked, because it was the only thing that I remembered didn't quite work anyway. So examining the ring, forbidding feats of sigil work, you assume they're for purifying water. Let's look at the chair. You're glad to be free of it. Let's just examine everything. Oh, wait, that was the chair. Let's look at the door. It doesn't seem to be openable from the inside. That's also not OSHA safe, by the way. You know, it's kind of funny, like the things that need to happen. I don't know. I think, like, there's this habit in text adventures, and JRAM is very guilty of it, and I am guilty of the exact opposite, where where you have to examine everything, and again, like, it tells you exactly what you need to do to move the plot forward. Okay, so all we need to do is open the drain. So let's do that. Open drain. You open the drain cover, revealing an opening that is just about wide enough for you to squeeze through. Enter drain. You push the drain cover out of the way and carefully lower yourself into the opening. The cold and clammy walls of the pipe swallow you whole, and the shadows from your lantern turn the nooks and crannies into long, billowing black stains. Into them, you descend. The walls are close enough that you can keep yourself propped up with your elbows in the soles of your shoes. But then your left foot slips on something and you find yourself losing purchase. You grab your lantern close and tuck your head as you find yourself accelerating, rapidly, sliding out of control into a drainage system not built for human traversal. And the bilious canal opens before you, vast and writhing and pungent, the carrier of all the district's fury and decay, and you plummet from the drain pipe into cold, noxious water, 20 meters deep, flailing, squeezing your eyes shut, holding your breath, a gasp as your head bobs above water and the sun burns your face, wind, klaxons. And then you crash into the canal proper, and it buffets you without mercy. You cling on to the lantern for dear life as you are thrown across stretches and around bends, as arches and bridges fly past, as the lights of the city stretch out into screams of aquamarine other light. You swim for dear life. You breathe and breathe again. And then you see a dangling rope, and on bare instinct reach out and grab it like a lifeline. You slip a couple of inches. Your grip holds, and there you are, swaying from a rope as the rest of the canal washes away before you. Take a couple of deep breaths, and then you climb up. Between towering foundations, the rain lashes rusting hulks and flapping canvas shelters. It eats away at corpses piled in ankle-deep water. Where once there were buildings, posters, and lamplights, the bilious canal has burst through the polder and swept them all away, carrying off the detritus of innumerable unknown lives. Through an open sewage pipe, you see lights to the south. Let's go south. Oh, we're in Rats Run. Okay. So Rats Run is in the, I think anyway, it's in the oh my gosh, I can't remember, and I don't have my map up. It's in the like lower districts of the city. The bilious canal's runoff rises. It swallows these buildings and alleys in dark, writhing water. Unsteady plank bridges run between the few islands of dry stone. Hollow-eyed residents crowd around what lanterns pierce the gloom. A sewage pipe spews outflow from the north. Above, rope ladders climb to the rest of the shanty quarter. The bouncer from the crow's nest sits quietly by the shore, cradling Crow's body in his arms. Oh no. Looking at Crow, she isn't moving. A thin stream of black liquid runs from the edge of her mouth. Forget the bouncer's name. Webster. Webster stares into the water, transfixed. Talk to Webster. You step gingerly between the rivers of bile as you approach him. The rain is merciless, and it has not stopped since you left the channel works. It stings your cheeks where it lands. It runs in the joints of Webster's walking chassis, pooling in his shadow. As your reflection appears in the water, he starts. He turns to face you with disbelieving eyes. You? He looks you up and down. What on earth happened to you? I fell into the canal. His eyes flicker across your drenched hair, your tattered clothes. Prime's alive, he says. Sure looks that way. You all right? I've had better days. He exhales. Haven't we all? He replies. Haven't we all? The tide of decay rises and falls around you. The rain plays on the face of the girl in his arms, and her eyelids run black like ink. I'm sorry. You feel numb as the rain falls around you. You don't know what to say. Webster just gazes at the body of his friend before reaching up and wiping his goggles with the back of his hand. It's none of your fault, sweetheart, he says. You've got nothing to be worried about. Don't go around feeling sorry for other people, you understand? Aren't you worried her body will be contagious? He laughs. What does it matter? She's dead. The crow's nest is dead. I'm living on borrowed time anyhow. It's only a matter of when. He strokes her hair. Maybe a pair like us wasn't ever meant to last. Maybe we just weren't meant to be part of this world. You don't know that. He gazes at Crow's face for a long while and does not reply. Are you all right? A moment passes. Webster stares mutely at you. Then he looks down at himself as though he's forgotten his tired arms and creaking joints for some time. I'm fine, he says. Don't worry yourself about me. The silence returns. The rain traces the world in stinging white. Yeah, I've got to tell him the truth. Listen, I've found out the truth about the disease. It isn't an epidemic. It's a manufactured weapon, and someone is using it to kill people. Webster stares at you. Uh-huh, he says. Feel yourself growing flustered. I'm serious. I've seen the laboratory where it was produced. I read the research papers. Your voice cracks. Webster, I nearly drowned trying to escape. Calm down. He shakes his head. You're serious, aren't you? You aren't joking. He stares at the sky for a moment. He takes a couple of deep breaths. It really is. Primes. It's just another fucking alchemist joke. He chokes a little. His gaze falls to the earth, to the filthy water lapping at his mechanical legs. I'm so fucking tired, he says. I'm tired of feeling like a pawn in someone else's game. I need to get into the channel works. Can you help me? Webster gives you a long, probing look. After a moment, he reaches into his jacket pocket. You'll need this, he says. He tosses something small and oblong in your direction, and you catch it with a fumble. It's slick from the rain, glowing with faint sigil work and warm with alchemical energy. The insignia of the Council of Works is etched into its face. You look back up at Webster, who simply regards you quietly. It's disease, isn't it? He says. That's what you're heading back to the Channel Works for. You have unfinished business. Yeah. He smiles grimly. Crow won't need her passkey anymore. You, on the other hand, go spit in the guy's face, you hear? It's what she would have wanted. You turn over the passkey in your hands. It's only a small weight in your hands, but it feels heavy all the same. I have to go. The canal water heaves around you, and the mist curls around the passkey in your hand. You grip it tightly. Webster gazes at the body he's carrying in his arms. You do that, sweetheart, he replies. You do whatever you have to do. I think I'm going to stay here for a while. Up the shanty quarter. Labyrinthine morass of concrete and claustrophobia. You can feel every death about you like a fog that clings to every corpse and every brick. In the edges of your perception, there are dozens or hundreds of spirits, broken and fractured and too incoherent to utter a whisper, but you can feel their misery and longing all the same. Tangled rope ladders lead up and down. Somewhere to the north is the Via Mercurii, and to the west, the Cadaver Walk. Let's go north and see what's up. The road of change is a sneaking, secretive thing. It curls in the side streets and in the dark places. Here along the canal, the opulence of the upper Periarch peels away to reveal midnight hues and scarlet lamps, and rivers of black blood like festering scars in the city's skin. To the north is the Grand Forum, bleak and empty, while to the south, the shanty quarter begins. Let's go to the Grand Forum. A mural of Sulfos hides over a desolate paved square against the spires of the Channel Works district and the pungent smell of the dead. All around you are crowds of the formless spirits and empty-eyed apparitions which writhe and weep and claw at the mist like an unquiet sea. To the north, framed in illuminated mist, the Via Terminalis glimmers. Let's keep going north. And we are kind of speed running this. It's just kind of low-key, enjoying it. The armillary spear that marks this place is dormant, and the traffic guiding glyphs have been replaced by hazard signs and quarantine barricades. You must flatten yourself against the walls to avoid the watchful eyes of the Vigilates patrols, which stalk the crossroads like masked interlopers in the mist. The checkpoints are a stark reminder that you aren't supposed to be traveling around the city at this hour. You doubt you will be able to convince the Vigilates of your innocence if they are on Dr. Serpenz's payroll. And Justinian. Even if the authorities were to recognize his guilt, the idea of his execution makes your skin crawl. The thought of him being brought to trial on your account, beheaded for treason, remembered as a mass murderer. The thought sends a cold, stabbing pain through your heart. It's almost too horrible to envision. He isn't a mass murderer. He never has been. Surely, if you just talk to him, there has to be another way. You can still make things right. Can't you? You watch the patrolling Vigilates for some time, but you cannot see an angle of approach. They're too observant, and the searchlights too numerous. You would be spotted instantly, no matter which path you took, and you are beginning to lose hope in finding a way across when... It's him. You should recognize that mop of hair anywhere. Horatio! My dude! Horatio is posted at one of the crossings not too far from where you are, rubbing his mask and staring into the mist. I don't know if I should approach him or not. I mean, not would be the wiser course. No, I'm going to approach him. You pass between shadows, being careful to avoid the notice of other enforcers. As you approach Horatio, he freezes. Slowly, he lowers his hand from his face and reaches out as though to touch you. He stops short halfway and takes an awkward step back. "Mareed," he whispers. I thought you left." "I'm sorry about yesterday," you say, not quite meeting his eyes. Your hands are trembling. You clasp them behind your back, and you shrink in the too bright lamplight. You feel as though you have not said enough, and that you should apologize more. But what words in all of the existence would make Horatio forgive you? His mouth opens and closes. "Mareed." A searchlight passes perilously close to you, and you instinctively take a step back. Horatio realizes you are both in the open, and he leads you behind a nearby concrete pillar, just out of sight. An awkward moment passes. Neither of you can quite look at each other until Horatio clears his throat. "Listen," he says. He glances back at the scanning searchlight. "You shouldn't be here." I can't turn back now. Dr. Justinian tried to silence me, or Horatio, I need to get to the Channel Works. All business. "Horatio, I need to get to the Channel Works," you say. "It's the only way. If I get there, I can fix everything. I can make things right." You reach out and squeeze Horatio's hands, and he gazes at you with a look approaching awe. He says. He looks you up and down and takes a deep breath. You see yourself doubled in his lenses, staring back with eyes wide. Then he nods. Okay, Marie, he says very simply. What do you need? Can you get me there? Horatio looks out across the junction and the patrolling enforcers and the swiveling lights. Let me see. He scratches his head. If I make it look like you're a lost civilian, I can walk you to the concourse out front. I don't think anyone will bother us if we look like we're supposed to be there. But I don't know how to get you across the bridge. The channel works is closed, and the bridge only comes down for workers with passes. I have a pass. You reach into your jacket and take out the little oblong device that Webster gave you. The rain sparkles around it, its sigils reflected over and over in droplets. Horatio rubs the lenses on his mask. Huh. Where did you get that? A friend said it would get me into the channel works, you say. He studies the glowing lines. You've really thought this through. All right, since you already have what you need. He walks over to the pillar and peers around the side. Nobody's looking. If you want to get to the channel works, now's the time. You nod. He takes your hand and leads you into the billowing rain. It is nerve-wracking at first, being out in the open in full view of the sentries and the searchlights. Your heart skips every time one of the patrolling enforcers looks in your direction. Each time you tense in anticipation of a shout and raised alarm. But that moment never comes. Somehow, the looks cast in your direction slide off you like drops of oil, like you are the tiniest speck beneath the scrutiny of the Vigilace machine. So the rings of the armillary sphere loom like thunderclouds, and the black banner of the Turris Infinita billows like a specter in the sky. And Horatio leads you, steady in the grip of his hand, beyond the spotlights and the covered bodies and the battered barricade walls. By the light of your lantern, the two of you walk the ancient paths in the stonework, through the oppressive drizzling rain, until you have left the sight of the other enforcers and followed the northernmost crossing to its end. And there, the Hydra Aquifera awaits you. The concourse stretches up before your eyes, and the channel works rises at the end of the district, or perhaps the beginning. Horatio lets go of your hand and turns to you. This is your stop, he says. You find that you cannot look Horatio in the eye. Thanks, Horatio, he said. You've been a good friend. I won't forget this. Horatio nods and he grows solemn. He looks at the channel works, at that golden white fortress that almost seems to glow in the rain. Don't worry about it, he says. I suppose this is where we part ways again, isn't it? He gazes at you. Mareed, will I see you again? I'm glad I met you, Horatio. The wind whips at your hair. Horatio gazes at you quietly, and for a few seconds there are no words between you. Then he steps forward and hugs you one last time. He grips you tightly, and the feeling is almost enough to make you cry. It is a feeling from when you and Horatio were children, when death and disease were things that only happened in stories and history books. Good luck, he says. You nod slowly. You let him hug you for a moment, and then you stand up on your tiptoes and give him a peck on the cheek, just like old times. You should go, you said. You'll be caught for deserting your post again. Horatio pauses, as though shaken out of a dream, then nods. He squeezes your arm and heads back to the Via Terminalis junction at a steady trot, his collar turned up and his head down. He glances over his shoulder once or twice, and you look back at him with a kind of wordless certainty. You watch him until he's vanished out of sight. Then you turn back to the Channelworks concourse with a new sense of resolve in your heart. Now, there's only one thing left to do, and fate has placed the responsibility upon you to see it done. You stand before the fortress through which all waterways flow. Enormous colonnades line the concourse, flanked by selenite sentinels. Hydra-like channels snake in patterns and move into bas reliefs of dizzying scale. Before the fosse, the statue of Reason bears aloft the Azoth. The bridge to the Channelworks floats disconnected above the fosse, like the suspended pieces of a puzzle. Yet you see dozens of wandering ghosts here, shimmering anime, treading paths around the Channelworks concourse in cycles, and they cross the empty air to the Channelworks in spectral procession. Talk to ghosts. There's so many, and their spirits are so fragmented. It hurts just to see them, let alone speak with them. Let's look at them. The ghosts move as though following the steps of a dance. They pour in from the streets and the side roads, congregating on the concourse. They take something out of their coats or their handbags and make a motion with it like turning a crank. And then, as though guided by some invisible signal, they walk across air over the fosse and disappear into the mouth of the Channelworks. Okay. Let's look at the channels. Steaming water channels around the fosse. Steaming water cycles around the fosse and washes into the bilious canal. Let's look at the sentinels. Golems of war. Not even death phases them. The statue of Reason is sculpted in the image of Trismegistus. A cloak billows around her, and a blindfold hides her eyes. Cool. Cross bridge. You need to figure out a way to lower the bridge first. Okay. What is that thing called? Let's look at the pass key. It's a small oblong piece of ceramic. According to Webster, you needed to get into the Channelworks. Let's look again. There's colonnades, there's sentinels, there's channels, there's bas reliefs. Alright, let's look at the relief. Carved upon the Channelworks are dozens upon dozens of vignettes from history and myth. All of them pertain to water and life. The colonnades, these are pillars that are taller than some buildings. And then, what is a fosse? It's an immense water-filled moat that bars access to the Channelworks. So let's look at the bridge here. Curving plates of Araucum hover in midair over the fosse. You can only know them to be parts of a bridge from watching workers cross back and forth. Touch key? It's warm to the touch. wave key, nothing happens. So there is a hint system. It's a really deep hint system. Let's just check our journal real quick. It's the 7th of Aquaria, Orishum 4. My heart is pounding. I can feel white fire in my blood. There's nothing to do now but go. Go and finish what Justinian began. So we need to find Justinian in the channel works and find a way to lower the channel works bridge. The bridge is probably enchanted to react to Crow's passkey somehow. It looks like the ghosts I see are repeating the actions they performed in life. So let's look at the ghosts again. The ghost seemed to take something out and make a turning motion with it before entering the channel works. Turn key? The passkey grows warm in your hand, and there is a sensation like pulling out invisible strings in the air. You feel as though something tremendous is happening which you cannot directly observe. After a second, the parts of the bridge lower into place with a thunk. Oralcum fuses to Oralcum. Orichalcum. Forming an unbroken crossing over the fosse. Yeah. So let's go north. We're in the Hydra Aquifera. Past the swooping gates and the gilded halls, there's a weight. The weight of 10,000 tons of brass and machinery and art, of 100-year-old frescoes and pumping mechanisms, all bearing the weight of the district which upon this building rests. This, then, is the channel works. In all its grandeur, its might, its immensity, its capacity to change lives. There are dozens of halls here and hundreds of stations, but you know almost on instinct where Justinian will be. You have known him for too long, his penchant for drama, his desire for control, and it only seems clearer now that you have seen his true self. There could only be one place where everything could end. The stairs spiral from the heart of the channel works and they lead upwards. Yeah, let's go up. We're on a tarnished landing. Here the mechanism fall away, replaced by a vast emptiness. Motes of dust are suspended in the skylights as though frozen in time. The stairs pause and morph into a mezzanine from which you can see over all the vaulted arches of the channel works. Yet the plants and statues here do not overlook their domain, but gaze skyward into the rarefied tower above. As you emerge upon the landing, you hear voices and footsteps, and you instinctively look about for somewhere to hide. You crouch behind a nearby sculpture and turn your eyes to the end of the landing with bated breath. A door opens. Dr. Justinian steps out into the walkway, followed by the spittle-flecked protest of Dr. Serpens. "This was not in the agreement," he barks, gesturing and yelling as though he could skewer his junior with words. "We had a plan, and you overturned it. You have ruined everything, ruined the most basic integrity of our project." "Your project, Doctor?" Justinian whirls around to face him. "You would claim ownership of this too? Is there nothing that you will not twist to serve your perverted interests?" Dr. Serpens' expression darkens yet further. You accuse me of twisting Noctis's purpose? You petulant child. You know nothing about what Arcturus and I sacrificed for this. You could not stomach the plans we had, the power we crafted. Now you use our work to live out your little fantasy, and you threaten me? You threaten me? Dr. Justinian chuckles lowly. "What I said was not a threat," he says. "It was a declaration. I have no need to threaten something that has already been done." The older man's eyes widen. Justinian closes his hand to a fist in its sudden motion, and it hits you. You see an emptiness and a sun and an ocean and a beginning. For an instant, something brilliant swims at the edges of your vision. Dr. Serpens wails as the fingers of Noctis burrow into his animus and begin to rip it apart. He collapses to his knees, convulsing like a man possessed, ichor spilling from his slack-jawed mouth and bloodshot eyes. It reminds you of the way that Redden died in Dr. Cavala's clinic. Only this time, you see what is truly happening. You see every gory, unpleasant detail of what is happening to Dr. Serpens' soul. He screams, incoherently at first, then desperately, deliriously, "You bastard! The wine!" Justinian shakes his head. "You are no longer useful to me, Doctor. You should have thought about that before making demands." He spits on the ground beside the flailing Serpens before walking down the landing and through the double doors of a waiting lift. Dr. Serpens crawls pitifully after him in fits and starts, leaving a trail of dripping black blood. Justinian turns and looks directly in your direction. He gazes at you for a while, his lower lip stiff, his hands shaking ever so slightly. Then he presses an unseen button and the doors close. Dr. Serpens whimpers and cries and slams his fist on the panel and vomits a puddle of blood at their feet. Here, I'm not sure if I read this before. Here, the mechanisms fall away, replaced by a vast emptiness. Motes of dust are suspended in the skylights as though frozen in time. The stairs pause and morph into a mezzanine from which you can see over all the vaulted arches of the channel works. Yet the plants and statues here do not overlook their domain, but gaze skyward, into the rarefied tower above. Justinian has sealed the doors to the control room lift, leaving Dr. Serpens to die on the landing. To reach him, you will have to ascend the rest of the stairway to the top of the channel works. Let's look at these plants. We got a moment. Not real plants, but dead models made out of filigree. Let's look at the statues. Impressionistic works of art. Yet all they remind you of is the ghosts that you have witnessed, shapeless and voiceless, frozen in their dying likenesses. Climb the stairs and confront Dr. Justinian? Why, yes. Ooh, it's all glowy. The stories of the Channelworks control tower are almost as old as the Channelworks itself. You heard many of these stories as a girl, even growing up in a different part of the city. How the first philosophers used it to control the weather and turn back the hours of the day. In a world of wonders such as Sulfos, such stories did not seem impossible. It was a disappointment when you arrived in the Channelworks district and you were told that it was a glorified water distributor, that for all the philosophers' power and learning they could not build a tower that defied the laws of nature or brought back that which was lost. Even so, as you climb the steps, you understand why so many stories arose around this place. There is something special here. Here, where the evening sun pierces the stained glass and the power of the alchemical lines prickles the skin, it's easy to believe that a solitary magus might rewrite history. You climb the last step, and the animus light beckons you. You step forth. Channelworks Control Tower. You are in a bowl suspended above the city, wrought of glass and gold and dreams. The air hums with etheric screens and controls, like the workstation of a divine puppeteer. Outside, a tempest batters the skylights and casts the shadows of transient wriggling raindrops. Before you he stands, gazing into the turning clouds, bending the anemic skeins of the world with his fingertips. He pauses as he sees you enter in the reflection of the glass. I should have done something and just hit enter Justinian regards you from across the table with something like sorrow. What's the Tempest doing? The sky howls and bleeds black. Let's look at the controls. You feel like a theater goer who has wandered too far and glimpsed the smoke and mirrors behind the stage. I am really quickly saving. What else can we look at? What do the screens say? Same thing. Let's look at Justinian. His immaculate white coat is flecked with blood. Justinian, you say. Dr. Justinian's face is haggard in the stormlight. You can see the crevices in his cheeks, the cracks in his lips. He lowers his hands and looks at you with those smoldering eyes of his, like coals that might burn through your breast and make a blackened husk of all your heart. You shouldn't have come here, he says. He turns his eyes to the raging storm outside. You could have stayed in the cistern, he says. You were safe there, dry. Why did you leave? I don't appreciate your idea of safety, you say. You locked me up, Justinian. Did you think you were doing me a favor? Mareed. You take a step forward. You can feel the air of the channel works parting around you, heavy and buzzing with enchantment. You can feel all the threads of power that touch this place. I'm tired, Justinian. I'm tired of this nightmare. I'm tired of all this insanity. Justinian closes his eyes and purses his lips. Mareed, I told you. You still don't understand. No, Justinian, I've finally seen the light. You ball your hands into fists, tight enough for your fingernails to jab into your skin. I've been all over the district, you say. I've seen things that no one should have to see. I've seen through the curtain between life and death. You keep talking down to me about your great plan, about your vision. Haven't you ever wondered what I've seen? What I think? I've seen a lot of things, Justinian. I've done things that no one should have to do. And all for what? I've been thinking, Justinian, thinking about what I did and whether any of it was worth it. You close your eyes. Ooh. Two choices here. So I have because until today I haven't saved a single life, or because you're right, Justinian, no one can outrun death. To be fair, both of those are pretty badass things to say. Let's play to him. Because you're right, Justinian. No one can outrun death. I've been chasing you for so long. Chasing something that I didn't have a name for. And I'm starting to realize that perhaps it was a dream that never existed. For the longest time, I held on to the memory of my father. I kept clinging to that day when I was 14 years old and my life went up in flames. As if I could have gone back in time and done something to bring him back. I kept thinking, could I have stopped Raiden's death? Could I have fought the trading company? Could I have solved the shanty quarters problems if I had only looked close enough to find the answer? You touch your pendant. I was mistaken, you say. I never had a choice. I grew up thinking Ferropolis was beautiful. The gleaming statues, the towers, and the lights. But it's all a lie, isn't it? It's a mask over a city that has been falling apart from the beginning. Looking down from above, we only see the glittering machine, not the blood and mud and tears that keep it going. A flash of lightning. It scores the Channelworks district in white, every skylight and spire rendered into twisted tapestry. A peal of thunder rolls over the city, making the windows of the tower shudder. Yet you wonder if the people of the shanty quarter, buried in concrete and neglect, will know it's passing. So you do understand, Justinian murmurs. I'm tired of chasing after a dream, you say. It's about time I owned up to the truth. And the truth is that death has always been here, in our city, in our world. We just chose not to see it. He nods, steps forward, takes your hand. He's alive now, eyes aglow, and there's an electric current in his fingers that touches yours. You see it, he says. The Channelworks district I see. Finally, you understand. Then you see. He turns and sweeps his arm across the whole panorama of glass, encompassing the skyline of the city. You see why this has to be done, he says. We cannot change the city alone. We cannot change it with our clinics, our medicines, our surgeries. But with Noctis, we have a choice. We can make a difference. You see the purpose in all this, the potential that this has to change the world for the better, don't you? I want both of these endings. So JRM was saying that there's like something like 6 endings. I think this is the point from which I want to just see how many endings there are. So let's go good girl run, and then later on we can do the evil run. Noctis isn't the answer, Justinian. Lightning flashes once more, illuminating the two of you. The clouds beyond the glass broil and rage and whimper. I wish it was so easy, you say. If only it were so easy, that we could stand in this tower and snap our fingers and it would fix everything. But life isn't like that. Death isn't like that. Death is like a fire, taking and taking and taking until there's nothing left to take. You've seen it, haven't you? You've seen how death tears people apart. It leaves scars that our eyes can't see. In our city, in our souls, in the world. It never creates something without taking something away. I gave up everything to stop you, Justinian. What did you give up? What did you sacrifice to get to where you are now? He looks out the window. His eyes are hard, his jaw set. Dr. Serpens's blood oozes down the front of his coat, slowly, in long, dark fingers. It will all be worth it, he says. Will it, Justinian? Will it? You circle around and grab his shoulders, making him face you. How many lives have you destroyed? How many people have you put into the ground? Justinian, you took everyone who I cared about away from me. I died and came back because you couldn't stop your own people from killing. Do you really want to bet on a biological weapon? Are you willing to stake the Channelworks district on this bet? Justinian pushes you away with sudden force. You don't think I know that? He says. You don't think I don't regret what I have done? Everything has a cost, Mareed, and the cost is highest when we are trying to change the world. But it will be worth it. Pharmacos knew this. The philosophers knew this. I can create a better world. I know I can. And I have weighed the consequences. No, Justinian. No one can measure the weight of a soul. You stare down Justinian as the storm rages around the two of you, setting your confrontation to a chorus of wind and rain. Your heart hammers in your chest and the world spins and you close your eyes and let the bitter tears fall. I understand, you say. Believe me, I understand. I've seen just how little anyone matters in the grand scale of things. Like pigeons that are born to fight for breadcrumbs and die. So why do we keep going? Why do we fight death in a war that can never win? You turn to the windows and place a hand on the cold glass. It mists around your fingertips, tingling the city lights in somber white. Because we have to, you whisper. Because without us, there's no one else. It's a thankless profession we chose, Justinian, to be the keepers of life and death. We keep the oath and we hold the line, knowing that our faith may never be rewarded. We gather all the knowledge and the wisdom and the strength we can harness in ourselves, hoping that we can mend a broken world one patient at a time. Perhaps one day our strength will run out. We'll lose our knowledge and our wisdom and our hope. Perhaps one day the sea will claim us. Until that day comes, I'm going to fight. Justinian shakes his head. He averts his gaze, whirls about, clenches and unclenches his fists. He wails at the sky, a long and loud and inhuman cry of rage and terror and anguish. His eyes are wild and his cheeks are wet with tears. I don't believe it, he whispers. I don't understand. Why? Why? I loved you, Marie. I loved you. So why must you be the same as all the others? Why, after all you've gone through, why do you still cling to that stupid fucking delusion? His head falls. He grips the railing around the chamber, the life gone from his body, a shuddering wreck of the man you once knew. With your second sight, you see all the power of the Channelworks control tower wound up and clenched tightly in his hands. It's over, Justinian. He shakes his head slowly, his shoulders trembling, his knuckles bone white. Slowly, he draws himself up, inch by inch. He struggles to compose himself, twitching and shivering, as though your words have carved open one of his arteries and drained dry his beating heart. No, he breathed, no, you will not stop me, Marie. You cannot stop me. I see now. You could never understand. You are as deluded as everyone else is. No matter. I won't allow you to hold me back any longer. I will keep my promise, Marie, to not lay a finger on you. But from now on, we part ways, and all ties are severed between us. If you still wish to end my life's work, you can do it over my cold, dead body. He gazes at you. His eyes are alight. His chest rises and falls in ragged breaths. He's the countenance of a man prepared to die. Well, I'm going to save here as well. So there's a lot of potential save points, apparently. I know we have been playing Woman of Action. I'm going to walk away. You turn away. And so, like, let me pause here for a second. As interactive fiction and as one that's, I'll be honest, pretty railroaded, you know, you really don't have much of a choice in what's going on. And it's different than some of the other sort of very railroady kinds of interactive fiction. So we played Tacoma on what was that, Sunday? And like there's only one plot line for that. you don't get to make one choice throughout that whole thing. But with this kind of interactive fiction where you do have the occasional choice, I think it's important to like think about the characterization that you've built over time. I wish I had J-Ram here to talk about this, but you know, you're playing a game yourself, and I'm nerdily enough gearing up for another D&D campaign, and you can play D&D. Hey now, you can play D&D like a sort of like World of Warcraft kind of game, where you're just trying to get like experience and win the quest so that you can move on to the next quest. Or you can sit there and try and figure out like what is, and you can also as like a DM design for these things. But the opposite choice is to create your character and work through it the way that your character would. And so as we've been building this like character throughout the choices, even if some of those choices were false choices that didn't lead to new narrative ends, like you're always going to get to I am really not sure why my captions are being funky today. You're really not going to get to a new narrative section by being nice or not being nice to various characters. Although I do love that there was one choice that just was like, cool, you're done. Game over? Was that satisfying? But moving through, like, creating the character, okay, well, we played her as generally a good person in a shocking twist from other games that we've played. But I think this game in particular, like, the story didn't demand it, but the story lent itself to like, okay, well, Mareed is an interesting character. Mareed has plans. Mareed is trying to do good. You know, this isn't necessarily like, let's say, I'm going to keep going back to it, A Mind Forever Voyaging, where, you know, you're playing this unfeeling, uncaring kind of robot or computer or whatever. You're doing this in order to, I don't know, make it a little bit better. And like, you're a real person in a real world, and you're trying to make things actually work for this world. All of this to say, this is why I chose not to kill Justinian at the end. You know, the character that we have been creating is genuinely compassionate, and I don't think that she, even with her extreme change in character over the past 5 days or whatever, from kind of, you know, bookish and not wanting to be involved, I think the character that we have created would not have killed Justinian. We will come back. We will load and see some more of these endings. But all of this to say that Mareed turns away. You cannot meet his gaze. It seems a strange thing to come this far, to have endured so many horrors and threats to your life, only for this to be the barrier that you cannot surmount. Everything in the past week has led to this conclusion. Every cell in your body screams at you to make things right. But you cannot do it. You cannot do it. It is a kind of weakness to love someone to the point that it hurts. Is it selfish to let thousands die in order to remain true to yourself? For so long you have clung to the hope that everything will be all right in the end, that saving so many lives will have been worth it. You have suffered so much and for so long for the chance to become the heroine you had always dreamed of becoming. Yet, in the end, the final cost proved too much for you to bear. Perhaps you really are a weak and selfish girl. Perhaps you were a fool from the beginning to believe in kindness. But as you look up at Justinian, your hands shaking and your heart racing, you realize with a strangely comforting certainty that there is nothing you can do after all. Because you can't kill him. You can't lose anyone else. So, full disclosure, this is not the reason why I wanted to do this, and we can talk about that more. You turn your back on the man you love. After a lingering moment, you walk away, the storm raging around you, the rain-streaked windows darkened by the morning sky. There's nothing more that can be done and nothing more that needs to be said. There's only a parting and the last wistful moments of a dream that could have been. You enter the lift and the doors close. On the way down, you cry your heart out. You think of Raiden, Dr. Artoris, your parents, the bodies in the streets. Perhaps their deaths were simply fated to pass, like all moments in time. So we got the epilogue here. It's faded now, a little discolored in the sunlight. The film has degraded somewhat since you removed it from the collegiate archives, but Justinian's face is stark and clear in the photograph, and it leaves as vivid an impression as ever in your mind. It's been more than a year since you walked away from him, so why does it still hurt? Why is it still painful to remember? You sit up and shake off the unwanted memories, idly massaging the old ache in your wrist. It may be a slow day at the clinic, but you have better things to do than reminisce like an old woman about the past. There's someone you're waiting for. We're in the clinic. The late afternoon sunlight creeps in the waiting area. It casts long shadows on plaques, memorabilia, the odd passing ghost. A row of chairs faces the prescription counter, where a battered animus lantern sits on a stack of newspapers. Further on is a consulting study, home to a desk strewn with unfinished notes and diagrams. A calomel curtain leads north to the surgery room, stairs lead down to the mortuary, and the front door lies east. Let's go down to the mortuary. Best to stay in earshot of the front door. Let's go to the surgery room. It's best to stay in earshot of the front door. Let's go east. You should remain in the clinic in case anyone comes in. Let's wait. Let's look at the newspapers. Noctis victims continue to surface. Magister Jovinus was found dead of the affliction in his chambers. Liber 4. Confirming suspicions that the Black Death has not been fully eradicated and may be here to stay. Third quarantine of Furopolis? With the Periox struggling to recover from successive disasters, many have called for an alternative solution. The philosophers are reportedly divided on the issue. Interspecies Romance Guide. Pansapient lovers rejoice, for in this tell-all our experts outline the steps towards a fulfilling interspecies relationship. Wish I could read that article. Let's look at the plaques. Let's spell plaques correctly. Presented to the Furopolis Medical Office in memory of the victims of Black Death. Let's look at the ghosts. You have grown accustomed to the sight of wandering spirits. They walk among the living and you among them. A chime issues from the front door. Is he back? Open door. You open the door. Horatio returns your gaze, looking weary. Natron dust billows from the filters of his mask. Behind him is a black carriage loaded with dead bodies. Hey, Mareed, he says, less victims this week. Sorry, I went as fast as I could, but all of them were dead by the time I heard about them. It's fine. You lower your eyes. Let's talk inside. Horatio draws up the carriage, and the two of you begin unloading the bodies. They come tumbling out, rows and rows of natron-lined body bags, soft and moist to the touch. Some of the victims have lost so much blood that their bags are all but flooded. After a while, Horatio has to take a break. He disinfects his hands and pulls off his mask, shaking his hair loose and taking short, sharp breaths. It never gets easier, does it? His voice is low. I feel like I'm going to be sick. I've seen so many people die. Are we really making a difference? Are we just stooges chasing Justinian's coattails? Why are you doing this to me, buddy? Sorry, y'all. I'm just trying to make this a little better. There we go. A long pause. I know you said not to rat him out, he continues. You said that we could still fix things. I don't know if I can keep doing this, Marie. Nothing has changed. You're a doctor now, but you're still dealing with Noctis. Day in, day out. And it's like we'll be doing this for the rest of our lives. You pause. You don't believe in me anymore? He looks at you. I believe you're a good person, Marie. I don't know if this is the right way. For a moment, words fail you. You close your eyes and exhale. You think of your father's animus flickering and dancing in your second sight. I'm not a good person, Horatio. You say quietly. I'm not proud of what I've done. Do you think I wanted all this to happen? To let Justinian live so all these people could die? I'm weak and I'm sentimental and I failed. In the end, I couldn't do what I knew I had to do. Saving lives, developing vaccines. It's all as you said. It doesn't solve anything. It just prolongs the end. But I have to do something. I have to do something that makes me sleep better at night. Because I don't think I could live with myself otherwise. I'm weak, Horatio. Saving lives is all I can do. And I can't do it by myself. I need you to help me atone. That's all I can ask for. Horatio is quiet for a while. He meets your gaze with his tired, bloodshot eyes, his hair as messy as ever. Then he nods. All right, he says. All right, I'm with you, Marie. I'm with you. In another time, in another place, you might have hugged Horatio and cried on his shoulder. Whoop. Hit the wrong button. In another time, in another place, you might have hugged Horatio and cried on his shoulder. But both of your hands are dirty and contaminated, and there's no time to grieve. There's still blood samples to be taken, vaccine candidates to be tested, victims of Noctis to be sorted, studied, and avenged. So you just look into Horatio's eyes, and his look of mutual understanding is enough. You reach for the next body bag and pull it open. Death waits for you inside, but you are not afraid. Hey, got ending 5 of 7. So let's restore. That was a sad ending. And okay, so to go back on a lot of what I was talking about, like the problem with this being the way that it is, being a very railroady kind of thing, it doesn't know what's in your head. Like, you don't entirely like get to know, or like the computer can't know, well, you chose not to kill him because like you're trying to be a good person, not, oh, you're like in love with him and can't kill your love. And it's like, no, like, and Jeremy and I talked about this, like feeling like the ending wasn't earned, or like this weird love thing isn't really earned. You absolutely get more of a feeling that, like, at least to me, that Horatio and Mareed are more in love and have more in common and have more of a history. Like, they don't ever really explain the history, but they have that history where it's like, oh, you guys went to like college together, sort of, kind of, not exactly. I don't know how I feel about that. And definitely I don't know how I feel about it affecting the definitely don't know how I feel about it affecting like the very end of the story. Like, I think what our characterization of Mareed would have done is like gone to somebody, some authority figure, and been like, no, look at this. Like, this is what's going on. So, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try refreshing my captioner. Okay. So, with a refresh captioner, let's kill Justinian. You close your eyes and walk forward. It is all so easy. You have imagined this many times, first morbidly, then purposefully, with deliberation as you realize the nature of the power entrusted in your hands. You practiced with your peers at the physician's college until it became second nature to you, and you learned to wield your scalpel as easily as an extension of yourself. For to save a life is difficult and exhausting and never guaranteed. But to take a life with the flick of your wrist is the simplest thing in the world. You stab Justinian in the neck with your scalpel. He collapses on the floor, blood spurting from his wound. And you see the world swim as his soul is shorn from his body in the same fluid motion. His animus stares at you, eyes bulging in shock, a dark river running from his neck. Then the other souls in his wake, 10,000 strong, grasp his hair and clothes and phantom limbs, and his mouth distends into a wordless scream. Together they are pulled into a windless vortex, and they are borne away into the reaches of the veil beyond your second sight. You take deep breaths. Your knees are weak. You close your eyes and rest on the railing for a moment, trying to steady your hammering heart and to ignore the sight and scent of pooling blood. In death, Justinian looks almost content. Perhaps you have failed him. Perhaps you have failed your philosophers by dishonoring your oath. Certainly by the standards of the physician's college, you are no longer worthy of bearing a scalpel. But you have not failed the Channel Works district. Justinian will kill no one else. You have made sure of that. You step over Justinian's body and gaze upon the city and its lights and all its meandering souls. The storm has passed, leaving a myriad glimmering raindrops to flow into each other on the other side of the glass. There is a feeling in the air that you have almost forgotten. A feeling of weightlessness, of a time without fear. And there, on the horizon, on the clouds, on the flashing lenses of your animus lantern, the first rays of dawn. Into the epilogue for this ending. The sunlight hits the counter, and you blink the dust of sleep out of your eyes. You sit up, stretching your sore arms and rubbing the old ache in your neck. These old dreams. Have you fallen asleep on the job again? What Dr. Cavallo would think if she saw you now. You straighten your jacket and brush your hair into some semblance of presentability. Your mentor will be back from the hearing soon, and you will be ready for whatever tidings she brings. We're in the clinic, blah, blah, blah. Let's read some notes. The beginnings of a research paper on the Noctis vaccine. Still a work in progress, but you have some promising results. Read diagrams? Same thing. Let's look at plaques. For exceptional courage and faithful service during the Noctis crisis of Auricium 4. Let's look at the ghosts. Same thing. Let's look at the memorabilia. Flowers and cards from visitors and patients. You convince Cavallo to let you place them around the clinic. Can't go down. Can't go east. Let's just wait. Aha! A chime issues from the front door. Is she back? Open door. You open the door and Dr. Cavallo barges through, her greatcoat flapping and her mechanical leg hissing and clicking. She has a boy on her back and with his arms wrapped around her shoulders. You took your sweet time, Mareed, your mentor quips. Get over here and help me. Damn it. I'll handle him, you say. You prep the gurney. Cavallo lifts the boy's forearms and you shoulder his weight with quick, practiced motions. He's coughing and gasping and his breath is cold. Probably inhaled some kind of halidus or wraith disturbed by the shanty quarter remodeling. You steal a glance at Cavallo, and your assumption is confirmed when she retrieves an emetic and an air pump from under the counter. Breathe slowly, you tell the boy as you carry him to the surgery room. You're going to be fine. Just take deep breaths in and out, okay? I'm scared, he cries. I can't breathe. Am I going to die? No, you're not, you say firmly. Just keep breathing deeply. As long as you keep it steady, you'll be fine. I want to live. You'll live. We'll make sure of that. The two of you pass through the calamo curtain in the cold light of the surgery room. Cavallo nods at you, a hint of a smile on her lips. Sit the boy down on the gurney, head back, arms apart. You kiss your pendant for luck before pulling your gloves on. The boy might not live, or he might. Ever since the council demolished the shanty quarter without consulting its residents, you've seen dozens of cases like this. And if you save him, the chances are that he'll die a week later of a knife wound or a throat infection. There's nothing you can do to change that. But here and now, you can do something. You can make sure the kid gets the chance to live one more day. Your mentor looks at you. Ready, Dr. Mareed? Always. So weirdly enough, that seemed... Am I weird for thinking that that's not as satisfying an ending as it could have been? It was like very like 80s. I just don't know. All right, so what happens if we agree with Justinian? I think I'm only going to do one of these. I don't know. That especially since that's probably like the canonical ending. I'd be curious to know which one's the like canonical ending. It's like that seemed very like end of an 80s cartoon. Noctis is a means to it. So we're going to, just to be clear, we reversed all the way back to where we had this choice, where Noctis isn't the answer and Noctis is a means to the end. Noctis isn't the answer is, I believe, what we chose. Oh gosh. I'm going to read a bunch of stuff. Um, and I'm just curious to see what this choice leads to. Like, is it really a streamline? So there's a great blog post by Emily Short that's like, maybe it's not Emily Short. There's a great blog post that goes through all the different like possible structures of IF. I'm just trying to double check it to see if I can't like find this really quickly, and of course I can't. But like there were various structures, and I did love all of them, honestly. Like I can think of good games that are all of the structures. And this one seems to be sort of like there's a couple of like off ramps, and we found one actually. But I think what we did was, what this structure is like more or less a straight line, and then it kind of explodes at the end. So I'm curious to see how exploded they get, or is it really like if it's going to branch off and then come back together for like a 40th time. Noctis is a means to an end, you say. I see that now. I was so focused on the individual tragedies that I didn't realize the simplicity of it all. Because life is built on death, isn't it? Death is the price we pay to live. I wouldn't be here if I hadn't let Carnosaur to her demise. The Channelworks District wouldn't be here if not for the livestock we slaughter, the criminals we sentence, the vermin we purge. It's all killing under a different name, isn't it? It's always been our decision to make, to choose who should die and who should live. Lightning flashes once more, illuminating the two of you. The rim of Justinian's face glows in stark relief, light against shadow. I know you're a good person, Justinian, you say. I wish we lived in a world where goodness was rewarded, a world where good people didn't have to make bad choices. But we live in this world, this awful, cruel world, and we have to make the best of what we've been given. We can't undone what's been done. We can't bring back the people Noctis has killed, but we can do better. With this power at our fingertips, we can make things right. There are tears glistening in Justinian's eyes. Mareed, he whispers, I understand, you say. I finally understand why you're doing this and why it has to be done. Justinian grasps your hands. It has weighed on me for so long, he chokes, working alone in the dark, seeing the cracks in the world. Mareed, you see it too. You understand the pain. It is a heavy burden to measure the weight of a soul. You shake your head and laugh bitterly into the thunderstorm. You feel giddy, weightless, as though a great chain that once bound you tightly has become undone. And last, you see the city for what it is, like a corpse that has been rolled over on a slab, all its ugliness and imperfection revealed to you in the cool blue animus light. And you look to Justinian, and you look and know with absolute certainty what you must do and what must come to pass. Join me, he whispers, holding out his hand. Together, we can right all wrongs. We can change the world for the better. You slowly reach out and grasp his hand. It is hard, calloused, yet warm and brimming with potential. The tips of his fingers glow with animus light, just on the edge of your second sight. And there is something like a galvanic current in them that makes your heart race. No more senseless deaths, you say. No more injustice. No more lies. I will never lie to you again, Mareed. All I say now I say from the bottom of my heart. Look into his eyes, eyes of purging flame. They lick at the last strongholds of worry in your mind and melt them like shadows before the break of dawn. I believe you, you say. I believe you, Justinian. I'm sorry I doubted you. I still don't know what to think. I don't know if I'm making the right choice. But you've shown me that you're sincere. And perhaps there really is another way. To end all this heartbreak. To end all this suffering. Perhaps this will be the tool that sets us free. Justinian nods and takes your other hand. You feel yourself drawn irresistibly, inexorably, into the wake of his path. He is magnetic in a way that you cannot resist. He leads you away from the battering rain and towards the central podium of the Channelworks control tower, and you find yourself following after him, into the ether, into the kindling, into the light. Pain, brilliance, chrome. The world swims into focus. Your head spins like a gyre. You stretch your aching neck and blink the sleep out of your eyes. Have you fallen asleep on the job again? Nausea, somnolence, humoral imbalances. The symptoms you experience are growing more apparent by the day. It's terrifying and exhilarating, a reminder that you're part of something greater than yourself. You quickly straighten your jacket and tidy the messy notes on the desk. Justinian will be back soon, and you will look your best for him. Ooh, we're in Justinian's clinic. This upscale clinic exudes a muted elegance. Chrome fixtures are lit by surgically placed spotlights and underscored by dizzyingly intricate sigil work. Here then is the great courthouse of reason, where every patient is cataloged, every disorder is eradicated, and everything lies in its rightful place. Your desk and your notes have been tucked away behind a pane of frosted glass. Nearby, there's a stack of newspapers and a correspondence anchor woven into the fabric of the ether. So, newspaper. So it's the same end as the bad end. It's the anchor, an immaterial alchemical construct. Justinian uses it to keep tabs on information and communicate with conspirators across the city. Read anchor? Listen to anchor? You hear nothing unexpected. X notes? You're currently plotting several complex vectors of transmission. Now, as ever, efficiency is paramount. Okay. Get anchor? You started learning the Ars Etheris, but operating an anchor like this is still beyond your understanding. Okay. What's my journal say? I've always dreamed of being part of something like this, but I never imagined that it would be so real, so immediate. Great changes are already happening, and I look forward to more with a kind of breathless anticipation. It's intoxicating to be on the cusp of a new age, to sit and work knowing that the future is just at hand. Current objectives. Wait for Justinian. Okay. Maria's notes. Now that I think about it, the clinic has changed quite a bit since then. Okay. A chime issues from the front desk. Is Justinian back? Perhaps you should head out and receive him. Oops. No. Wrong button. You step through the Calomel arch and make your way down the long mirrored halls. The spirits in the halls watch you pass with mute and sightless eyes, but you pay them no heed, for only the living have the power to change the world. Dr. Mareed, the porter says with a well-practiced smile. Just this way. Dr. Justinian has been waiting for you. Justinian is there, in the corner, with his coat and his briefcase and his brooding look. When he sees you approach, he is revitalized, as though the sun has struck his face anew. He smooths out his vest and smiles at you in that way that makes your heart flutter. My love, he says. You kiss him on the cheek and he reciprocates. For a while, neither of you says anything. It is enough to feel the warmth in the embrace of a loved one. Then you pull away, suddenly shy, but the feeling of your cheeks burning still somehow fills you with excitement. Did it go well? You ask him. He nods in reply. Let's talk inside. The two of you make your way back into the clinic and then deeper, through the secret door and into the converted equipment room. Justinian looks ahead serenely as the security enchantments perform their scans. He makes his way through the mist-wreathed entrance with a sure-footedness, a confidence. Everything went according to plan, he tells you. There was a bit of confusion with one of the delivery routes. It seems Iacomus got two of the street names mixed up. But your predictions all worked out to be correct. All the targets will be dead by tomorrow morning. A flutter of schadenfreude. You step through toward the planning board and cross out a string of names and sketches in red. Nearby, the wall of animus lanterns glows a little brighter. Do you think we can move ahead of schedule? You muse. We could start directly on the fourth stage of the rollout. If we keep up the pressure, the disinformation, we might even be able to dismantle the cell before the end of the year. You let out a little gasp as Justinian grabs your shoulders. He chuckles warmly. You work too hard, Mareed, he says. I've always loved your persistence, your diligence. But you really should learn to take a rest now and again, especially now that you have our future to think about. His hand strays down to your belly and you blush. You've been self-conscious about your bump since it appeared. I can still work, you say. Being pregnant doesn't mean I have to lie in bed all day. Besides, where would you be without me? Justinian laughs. We shall see, my dove, we shall see. The two of you banter a while longer before settling into the familiar rhythm of work. You compliment Justinian well, you've found. You have the eye for detail he lacks and the craft to back up his charisma. And even in the minutiae of logistics and death dealing, every second of your shared existence is beautiful and full of life. With your collegiate love, you have found new purpose. For once, you find that your actions have weight and meaning. For yourself, for the city, for the little one growing in your womb. With this scalpel of night, you have the power to reshape the world your children will inherit. It will be a world with pain, with cruelty, with hardship, no doubt. There are some things that even death cannot erase. But these things can be controlled and mastered, just as you have mastered death. They can be harnessed and forged anew. Justinian smiles at you and all is right with the world. You turn to the wall of caged souls and ponder where next to begin. So that was the super evil ending. I really did like the parallelism with the other endings. But that's just me. I just really like parallelism in general. So I think we've kind of examined all parts of Weight of the Soul. I'm going to make JRM either play through the very end or watch it so that maybe we can talk a little bit more about it. But just like general thoughts overall, I still don't know how I feel about this Justinian like plot line. Like, really, the and especially as like as it gets to these like deep kind of discussions, and like the endings that are out there, like two of the endings are solely based on the fact that you love him. So it's either the super bad ending or the pretty bad ending. I guess the super, super bad ending, which we found last time or the time before, that one's not based on that. That's just based on the fact that, like, you're going to listen to Dr. Kavala. But, like, I don't know. I wish I could be more confident in this Justinian plotline. And, like, even in the best ending, like, the bad ending had the only relationship that made sense to me. Like, Horatio consistently helps you. Horatio, it says, and I'm going to beat on this because I love my dumb himbo. But he seems like he's doing his best. Where, like, Justinian kind of is just there. It just doesn't sit right with me. All that being said, I think, well, sort of the other thing that I'm thinking about with this is that, like, I do feel like it didn't really matter what I did until the end. Like, everything else was just following the story, getting to it. Like, there was some stuff, like, we could have been nice to somebody, not nice to somebody, but it didn't pop up anywhere. And in the moment, you don't realize that, but, like, at the end, you know, you kind of sit there and you're like, well, what were the choices that I had? And I totally get it's a ton to splinter out and try and figure out, like, what you get for and not for completing these kinds of narrative points. But, like, I don't know, like, if I wasn't super nice to Webster and Crow, like, was there an option where you weren't super nice to them? I don't think so. But of course I was going to be. So I don't know. I'm very curious about that. Like, would you have needed a different way to get into the like channel works? And probably not. But maybe there was a different set of discussions that would have been available. Like, it would have been a lot more like adversarial, maybe. So those are kind of the two big criticisms that I have. One's just like straight up plot line and writing. The other one is more gameplay. But I still love this, and it was what got me back into interactive fiction. And, like, it's such a natural parser. It's such a natural way of doing things that, like, I don't know, I really enjoyed it. And the writing throughout is really strong. It's interesting to see how much writing is necessary for an interactive fiction compared to like a real novel. Because you have to do all these like little things and like figure out where it all fits together. So I mean, the fact that the writing's really strong, the fact that the parser makes sense except for one time, literally one time. That's incredible. And like I've talked about while I've been doing the Nethergate series, I've talked about how intense it is, how wild it is for like one person to create a game, and how valuable that is too. There's a consistent theme throughout this whole thing. And yeah, it's a world that they've been working on for a long time and blah blah blah. But like I don't think that this could have been like workshopped into something better with a larger team. So I do have my couple of gripes. I would love to hear what like JRam's thoughts are. But we will get those next week instead. So we've got plenty of time left in our stream. I want to do something